But just a point on something you mentioned when you were answering the question, you were talking about, finding your passion and kind of using that, turning that into something you get paid to do. Now, the reason why I'm very curious about this line of questioning is because a lot of our listeners, some of them are, younger and thinking, what should I do in my career? Now, there's an element of just pursuing your passion straight out. And also there's also the element of, being skilled, because, it doesn't mean the fact that you're passionate about something doesn't mean you're skilled at it. How do you balance, the approach of finding your passion and also finding something you're really good at or something you can be very good at to build a career out of it? Because that seems like something you've done so far in your career.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there are physical exercises you can do to plan for that. So for example, like Kerri Twigg has some great resources. She's a Winnipegger. She has a great LinkedIn channel. So, for example, like writing down the things you've done in your life that were work related, that you really enjoyed, like things you were really passionate about. When you do an exercise like that, where you write down those things and kind of have them in front of you, say you pick 6 things. And again, this is a good Kerri Twigg exercise. She says it, she explains it better than me. But upon doing an exercise like that, you can see all these things you're really good at. Even if you're a junior in your role, so you don't necessarily have a ton of work experience, you can still find like a common thread. With that thread, what you have to be able to do then is figure out transferable skills. So like I might, my brother, for example, loves driving around on an ATV. Well, that's not in and of itself a job, but what are some jobs that involve maybe, science, environmental research, whatever, things like that, where you're out in the field driving around on a quad, okay? So so for someone like that, it's like you have to kind of stretch it a little bit, right? Like if the things you really love don't perfectly, he's not going to be like a quad racer for a living, right? That's not a job for him. But, could he use some of these other things and turn it into something that where the job itself, the function of it might be something like environmental research. But if it means all day, like a lot of your days, you get to drive around in nature, be on the quad, take samples, do things like that. Yes, you need an additional skill set, but you're going to put yourself in a situation that you still really enjoy. It'll help you be passionate about the rest of the work that you're doing because the environment that you're in is something you really enjoy. So it does take a little work to try and match those and tie those things together. But the other side of it for me is not such a concrete answer, right? Like I feel as though I got quite lucky in some ways. I think a lot of people have pressure in their lives to really go down a very specific path. Maybe you have encouragement from your family members or friends to say, you have the greatest personality to be a lawyer, so go do that. Or you have a personality to be, we expect that you're going to become a doctor, so go do that. When you're in a world of, community engagement, marketing, community relations, sales, all those things, there's so many places you can take that. And I think my advice there would be to really remain open to the possibilities of what might come in front of you. And again, really try and think about those skills you have that are transferable. Because again, if you go back to the example of my path, at one point I was selling custom wine cellars to, people who had quite fancy homes around the world, millionaires and more and higher, that were building custom wine cellars in their homes. That doesn't match with technology that I'm in now. That doesn't match with, marketing and communications for a recruitment firm where I was before that. But I was just open to saying, okay, does industry matter? Yes or no? And it was luxury marketing. So that was interesting, right? Luxury marketing and sales. So that was another step for me, something I got to learn and engage with. It's really just to say, like, could I have thought I was doing that at that point in time? No, I wouldn't have predicted that, right? But I wasn't afraid to steer off that path a little bit. Sometimes that can be really scary for people. And so, my advice there would be just like really listen to the whole opportunity and that might be in front of you. Try looking at jobs that might not at the outset seem like they're a perfect fit and just seeing where those transferable skills lie. And then ultimately though, the flip side of that coin is really make sure that job matches those things that are going to make you happy from doing kind of an exercise like Kerri's, because sometimes something on paper might seem interesting, but if you actually look at the core of what it's asking you to do, sometimes the opposite happens. So you end up being open and it's actually you've gone too far into something the other direction. So you definitely just need to, put things on paper, write it out, think critically about it, talk about it with people that are in your close proximity in your life, right? And And for me, the fortune was being open and getting to work for some really amazing entrepreneurs, people like, Wade Miller, who was at Pinnacle and is at the Bombers now, of course, as a CEO, who are, they're super engaged in the community, and they're driven as can be, right? And so sometimes people like that are polarizing, but when you work with them, you learn so much because they are getting it done.